All right, so uh, there's still some challenges to be aware of when you're trying to design to a fixed, uh, baseline grid. Um, so you might run into some of these errors, challenges. Uh, if you use the Rhythm plugin uh, in your production code, that can help you with stuff like responsive elements like iframes, text areas, canvas, and SVG and stuff like that. Um, So this is something you can read about that. Something you might run into with forms breaking your vertical rhythm is with text areas. It's fine to specify rows, but if you specify columns, um, those aren't really going to follow your baseline grid. So I usually don't set columns. Um, Images can be interesting as well. Um, Depending on whether you're just trying to have let's just say like a hero image that spans from left to right side of your screen and takes up, I don't know, half of the height or all the height. Um, that's not that big of a deal, but let's say you want to make a gallery. In that case, you're trying to have, uh, images in that gallery of a certain height, in which case you can still follow this and what I set forth um, on some of the settings over there for rhythm. But you would just add a height property in right here um, to differentiate between those. Something else to watch out for is if you use background images. So let's say that hero image, let's say it's a background image. Um, I found the only way to make it work well, which I mean I think it's fine because I use grid anyways, but it's to set display to grid um, and then to set the column width and row height this way as opposed to giving it um, a height and width property. But if you do it this way, then uh, it'll work out fine. So given that I'd want this feature to be resized appropriately to follow the baseline grid, I would pass this class to the rhythm function, or I would give it another class of resize. Something else to watch out for is, believe it or not, fonts have all different kinds of internal settings, and you can run into some weird issues. So, what did I say right here? So I had this one uh, time I was using Roboto condensed with Roboto slab in the same line. And somehow when put together, it was forcing one extra pixel of height to each line. So then that started throwing off all the text below it and throughout the rest of the site. And I did all kinds of noodling, thinking that something was configured wrong, but it just ended up being that uh, these have slightly different settings, and when you put them together in the same line, it throws things off. So that's something that can be messed up. You're not going to want to use borders because borders have a height. So you're going to want to use outline or box shadow instead, which don't have layout. You're going to watch out for buttons as they have default borders and font sizes put in. You might need to reset those. You might want to be careful about not using box sizing. I should say that different. You want to be using box sizing. You can read more about it over here. But this is going to help you get the spacing that you expect to get when you're adding padding and margin to stuff. Margin collapsing. This isn't necessarily bad, but it's just something to keep in mind. Sometimes, you know, using padding might give you what you want, but it's just something to know. I mentioned this earlier, but if you use the subscript and superscript elements, those are going to add extra height um, to your text blocks, and those are going to throw off your vertical rhythm. As well, with tables, they have borders, so you got to use outlines instead of borders on the tables, which still work fine. You just don't get unwanted heights. And then just keep it simple. Just fight to keep your typography as simple as possible, and then it'll make it easy to manage. Yeah, that's it. Those are the errors that I come across. If you see something else, then just drop it in the comments, and I'll try to see what I can figure out and add it to the page. All right, cool.